This is going to be my review of On the Edge 1989, last night's feature presentation. This is one that I got on a VHS years ago for 25 cents in a thrift store. And the boxing, as you can see, it looks very, very amateur. It looks like this was at a library, a church library or something. At some point, it's got like a little code, little typed code on there. Looks like it would be something you find in like a little library. It also has the little pouch for like the return card in there. So this is it, On the Edge. Okay, so the cover really struck me when I was browsing through the VHS. I said this looks like it would be really good. Then I read the back. It says Vince says God is real. Ross says prove it, and then that was like just a great tagline. This one's 58 minutes long. It's a sequel, so it's a sequel to a movie from the year before, 1988, called Thin Ice. Not On Thin Ice, but Thin Ice, 1988. Both of these were directed by Rick Garside, who also did a film called Who Mania in 1985, which looks to be mostly an animated film, also a Christian film. Thin Ice and On the Edge are Christian films, but I'm probably never going to watch Who Mania because it looks like it's too much cartoon and animation stuff going on there. Look, that appears to be Rick Garside's first directed film with Who Mania. So in the film Thin Ice, 1988, this one it starts with a main character named Vince, played by Jay Roberts Jr., who is, I think he was in college and like home for the weekend, and his parents go to church. He goes to church with his parents, but he's not really a believer. And then when I think he just goes that one time, and then he meets a guy named Nick, who's kind of like around the same age and does like little things in the young adults, I guess. It's played by Mark Parra. And then he, kind of reaches out to Vince, calls him, invites him to a ski weekend. Of course, he goes, or we wouldn't have a movie. And there's some other people there. And so they have they're different types. So Mark Parra, Nick, played by Mark Parra, is like the Mr. Perfect. There's like nothing wrong with him. That's the guy. Well, he's not pictured on here, but and then another guy there is named Woody Kenny McMurphy, and he's played by Kenny McMurphy, and he's a Christian, but he still kind of like parties some and like smokes pot, and he smokes pot during the thing, like on the ski weekend. So the thing about him, he's kind of being a bad witness to Vince. And then you have Troy Glennon playing Zalton. So Zalton it's kind of like a pious type. He comes off real self-righteous when he's kind of preaching to Vince. And so that's a turnoff. And then you have the two women in this, the two girls. One of them is Shauna, and I forget the actress's name, but she's she's a party girl, and she drinks and she gets drunk during the ski weekend. So, and then there's another girl who's the baby sister, they say, of Zalton. Trish is her name. She's played by this blonde actress, forget her name, who's incredibly attractive. And I think there's something that the other girl doesn't like about her. Maybe I remember her just being real Miss Perfect, really like no flaws in her whatsoever. And so you have these like kind of different characters, and then you have some conflicts that happen, and you have Jay Roberts Jr.'s character Vince, who's the main character, ends up converting to Christianity at the end, like through some influences, especially from his friend Nick from church. And so that's kind of how the film ends. Yeah, so the sequel, On the Edge starts out in the door back at college with Vince, and he's now, he's a baby Christian, and then he has a roommate named Ross, and so Ross was not in the first film. I think he may have been mentioned in the, like, my roommate may have been mentioned in the first film, but Ross is played by Jared Moses, he's on the cover here. Has a like kind of Bubby Brister looking guy. This is Vince, the main character, has a mullet. He's kind of annoying, and so his Vince's roommate Ross is a like non-believer kind of. I guess he drinks because he has beer cans in the dorm room, and they conflict a little bit, but they're also kind of friends, which is weird. Like, they play basketball with each other, and they have a pretty decent rapport together for people who have different beliefs. But the whole premise of the film is that Ross says, I want you to, let's make a bet. You have to prove that God is real. If you can't, then I don't want to hear anything else about, your beliefs again. But if you can prove it, then I'll seriously consider, your Christianity, I think is the line. So there's a weekend trip here, and here comes Nick again, the Mr. Perfect guy who invites Vince to go to Yosemite Park with the youth group is going. So I think this is confusing because they're all like college age, and this may have just been like a script error where he said youth group, because none of them are youth. None of them are like high school age. So that was a curious thing about this film. So Vince goes, but he invites his roommate to go too, to come along to hopefully he has this idea is going to help prove God to his roommate on the trip with the influence of the grandioso scenery plus the help from his Christian buddies there. And so the girl who got drunk on thin ice in the movie Thin Ice is still kind of partying, and then the guy Woody, who was kind of still doing pot and stuff during Thin Ice, he's kind of made a turn, so he's kind of given up that stuff. I think I remember that from Thin Ice. He's kind of made a turn from that, and he's trying. He eventually convinces Shauna, the party girl, to go too, and so it's kind of a reunion of the group from Thin Ice. Now Shauna is played by a different actress. She's played by Diane De Rosario, it looks nothing like the actress in the first film. She's attractive, but she's kind of has kind of a pouty face, and she yells a lot in situations that don't call for yelling. It's just a little strange. And you have the Zoltan character, the kind of the pious guy, returns, played by the same guy, Troy Glennon, and he's changed a little bit. He's a little better. He's real knowledge biblically and history and all this stuff, but he doesn't press as much. He doesn't press Vince's roommate Ross, which is good. And then of course Nick is just perfect. He's there doing his thing, helping out with kind of telling Ross things about the Bible. So he does a good job with it, and Woody does too. He's kind of changed some. He's talks about his past experience and shares how he used to be kind of party guy, but now he's not. And then Shauna, the girl, and Ross are the only ones who are really they're not Christian, so they're and so they're kind of learning from the others. They have doubt, they have doubts and stuff. And then the girl Trish, who's the most dismissible character, she's the other girl in this, real attractive, but she's played by a completely different actress from the one in the first one. It's not the real good-looking blonde. It's someone named Leslie Ryan, who I don't know if she was in. Nope, that's the only movie she was ever in. So you have pretty much the same cast from the last one, except for Ross is in this too. There's other cast people listed, but it's a little curious. Like, there's a couple basketball player, 1 and 2, who were mentioned, who are listed in the cast. You do see basketball players playing in a basketball scene at the beginning. There's the sleaze bag at the party. He's credited. But then you have a party guy. He's also credited. But you also have this like a ranger played by Greg Smith. You never see a park ranger. And then there's a mule handler played by Gary Wheat. That's in Mike Irvin. There's 2 mule handlers listed. There's a part at the end where they're riding on mules, but you never see a mule. It's just weird. Maybe there's a Blu-ray of this thing film where they have deleted scenes where these people were actually in it, but I don't know. So they have this trip, and then there's conflicts, and there's sharing of stories, sharing of experiences. And eventually you have a big conflict at the end. Someone gets hurt, and you have one of the main characters, Vince, this guy right here. His of course, he's a new Christian, but he's got some like doubts, and he's kind of projecting and pushing on his roommate and being real hard on him. So some of that gets exposed. He does more talking than he does like with his actions, and he finds that out later. And eventually you have the girl, the party girl, Shauna. She's the one in this movie who does make a conversion. And in the final scene, it's a real goofy way they do it. They show her like on the mule, like going, I somehow really look forward to sharing with my non-Christian friends. Or it's just really like just terrible acting. And then you have then Ross, the roommate. It's kind of a stalemate, so no one really wins the bet, but they have a truce kind of at the end. They're buddies. Again, they say, I'll talk more about it if you want to, and he says, I thought more about God, but that's kind of all. That's it. I'm not really ready for this yet, so it's kind of it kind of sets up a second sequel, which they never did, unfortunately, but. Because it would have been great, but this is just a fun movie to watch. I don't know, it's just something about the characters, and just just a bad kind of short film, and this really grew on me. The first time I watched it, I didn't think it was that. It didn't really keep my interest that much, but then it kept getting better and better with each watch. And there's music in this that's just bad, like late '80s Christian pop rock stuff, especially the title track, On the Edge. And then there's bad late '80s clothes, bad late '80s hair. All of it's great. But the most curious thing about this movie, and the first one, the movie it comes that preceded it, Thin Ice, is that you have these young, like college age people, and you have kind of good looking people, and then there's not even the slightest hint of of any kind of romantic subplots taking place. I mean, there's barely. It's all, you have a scene, especially there's one at the end of Thin Ice where the guy who converts, Vince, the main guy, is like talking by the fireplace at the end with Trish, the blonde, who's like really good looking, and they're kind of talking about the faith and stuff, and it's like this could have led to something, like at least have something happen, like hold hands or something, but there's just, it's like there's a friendly hug, and like that's it. And then there's a couple of scenes in here that could have led to something, like there's Woody and Trish go off together. They don't really show what they do when they split up, when there's someone hurt at the end, when Nick gets hurt at the end, so they split off, and you think something, they bond somehow. And then there's a talk on the mountain with Zoltan and Shauna, when Shauna's confiding and wanting to trust God, and Zoltan's really doing a good job of like encouraging her, and she says, I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone. And it's like, and then just nothing happens. It's just like a friendly everything that's in this film with. Now I know that you get 4 sausages and 2 women, but you'd think there'd be something like some kind of subplot going on romantically, but it's completely platonic, which is really just kind of odd that they chose to do that, but whatever. It's Rick Garsai's movie. I don't know why they did that, but all right. So this is On the Edge, 1989. Fun movie. Check it out. It is available on YouTube. And one of the best things is that there is a lot of commentary, not commentary, but there's a thing with Vince and Nick, the Mr. Perfect guy. These little things where they're talking about different scenes in the movie and little lessons from it, and they're playing like these characters, like they're reflecting back on the trip. But these things are in segments on YouTube, and it's awesome to watch because they're at Nick's house or something, and they're like sitting around watching cartoons or watching TV or something, and they're saying, Sean will really learn that, and they show the scene, and it's like something that they would have made to like show at a youth group or something for like discussion questions, but it's brilliant. I love it. It's so like cheesily done, but this is a fun movie to watch. Yeah, On the Edge, 1989. I'll probably watch it another 24 times. All right. Hope you enjoyed.